So if the request successfully reaches the controller, how can we handle the input sent with the request? More specifically, we are of course interested in fetching the data which might be sent with a request. For example, we might have a JSON, an image, or an XML file being sent with the request. Laravel offers us a lot of help with handling the data which is attached to a request. It makes it very easy to extract JSON or URL encoded data as well as to access a file. If we have data like, for example, XML, which is not natively supported, we would have to write that logic on our own though, or implement some kind of third-party package. Once the data is extracted, we of course want to apply our business logic on that data and use it, for example, to store it in a database or store a file somewhere on our server. And again, for XML, we would have to come up with our own business logic here to get to the data in the first place. After we finished everything we wanted to do with the data, it's of course time to build a response, and this response will then be sent back to the client. But I'll come back to responses later in this module. The question is, how can we actually access the data? It's great that Laravel supports us, but how does it support us? Well, accessing input is really straightforward. We may use the input method on the request object injected into our controller action. Now this input method takes one argument, and that is the name of the field we want to access in the data sent with the request. For example, if we get some post data sent to our controller and the data is encoded as JSON, then we might retrieve the title of the post by accessing the title field in the JSON data, provided this data has a title field. But that is something your service has to kind of dictate, or which your service sets up. And of course, clients or client applications using your service will have to stick to the field names you set up in your application and therefore in the documentation of your application. Keep in mind that the request object here is only injected into controller actions which receive data encoded in the body of a request. If you have a controller action serving, for example, a GET request, where all the data we need is appended to the URL, in such a case, we wouldn't get the request object injected because, well, the data is available from the URL, and therefore Laravel would directly pass the data appended to the URL as arguments to that controller action. And you will also see this in the demo later. Now, of course, you may not only retrieve fields from JSON or URL encoded data, you may also retrieve files. And Laravel makes that easy too by using the file method on the request object, which allows you to do just that, retrieve the file from a field in the data passed to this controller action.